Well, welcome back, everyone, and today we're going to continue on with Chapter 1, What Does It Mean to Be a Leader? Now, today we're going to be looking at some theories that have evolved over time. From the time where we thought leaders were pretty much just a singular entity, where a person could be a great leader based on the physical characteristics of that individual, to today where we see that there are many variables that come into play when we're looking at effective leadership. So today we're going to be taking a look at the evolution of theories when it comes to making a good leader. Well, welcome back, everyone, and today we're going to continue on with Chapter 1 and what does it mean to be a leader. And today we're going to take a look at some old theories, some developmental theories that have evolved over the years. And we're also going to take a look, first of all, at what management is and what vision is. So let's go ahead and get started. Management and vision. Well, both of them go hand in hand. Management is the attainment of organizational goals in an effective and efficient manner. Now, what do we mean by effective and efficient? Now, you're going to hear these two words throughout this course because they are important. In fact, you have to be able to master these two if you're going to stay in management or if you're going to be a good leader. Now, what do they mean? Well, effective means that you're getting the job done. You're accomplishing your goals. Now, efficient means that you are accomplishing your goals at the least amount of cost. Now, you can have a problem and you can solve that problem, but if the cost of solving that problem is more than the problem itself, you're really not going to be that effective. So efficiency is the ability to maintain the lowest cost while obtaining your goals, which is effectiveness. Now, how does a manager do that? Well, you do it through planning and organizing. First of all, you need to be able to articulate some type of end result, which is the vision. And then once you have that vision and you have that idea in your head, you have to organize all the resources necessary for that vision to take place. Then you have staffing. Well, you can't get anything done unless you have people to do it. So staffing is bringing people in to be able to help you accomplish your goal. Directing is the process and it's the behavior and the act of leading people. And really that's what directing is. You are directing people to do things. That's leading them. Controlling organizational resources. Controlling is measuring. That's being able to assess where you're at, if you are reaching your goals, and if you're meeting your milestones and all of that, you continue on. But if you, through evaluation, along the way find out that you're not where you need to be, you can adjust accordingly. So the functions of management really entail planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. Now, we talked about vision just a minute ago. What is a vision? Vision is the picture of an ambitious, desirable future for the organization or the team. In other words, vision is where you want to be. You know, the Bible says without a vision, the people are in disarray. So a vision is something that people can wrap themselves around, they can be unified in, and they can collaborate to be able to reach an end result. And that's what the vision is. And to be an effective leader, you have to be able to communicate a vision, the end result of where you want your organization or your church or your ministry to be. Now, Exhibit 1.3 is just a comparison of management and leadership, and there is a difference. With managers, as you see here from a direction standpoint, you plan and budget, you minimize risk, you focus on the bottom line, whereas with leaders, they create vision and strategy, they maximize opportunity, they keep their eye on the horizon. With alignment, managers organize and staff, direct and control, create structure and order. The leader creates shared culture and values, provide learning opportunities, encourage networks and flexibility, and so on and so forth. So both are important. Neither one is more important than the other. In fact, even in churches today, you have the pastor who is considered the leader. And the pastor usually gets the pat on the back when everything is going good. Of course, when things are going bad, the pastor has to carry the mantle of responsibility and bear the brunt of many people's dissatisfaction. But normally, the pastor is seen as the leader. He is carrying that church in the direction that God is wanting him to go in and that church to go in. But it takes a good church administrator to be able to make sure that what that pastor is communicating is carried out throughout the organization. And your church may not have an administrator. You may have an associate pastor. You may have administrative staff. But these are the ones who are making sure that what the pastor communicates is God's intent for that church. You are the ones who are making it come to light, while the pastor can continue to be that visionary and inspire people and lead them. It's the same way in the workplace. You have the leaders of the workplace, the CEO, who communicates the vision of that company. And from that vision, each department has its responsibility to make sure that within the realm of their department, they're making that vision happen. And this is the matter of organizing and planning and measuring and so forth. It's not as maybe glamorous as maybe the leadership position, but it is necessary. You cannot be I believe, an effective manager unless you have sound, effective leadership. And you can't really be an effective leader unless you have sound, competent, efficient, and effective management. So the two go hand in hand. But this is just a comparison of relationships, personal qualities, outcomes, and so forth. They have the same vision, but they really facilitate that vision from two different perspectives, from a management standpoint and from a leadership standpoint. Now, we have historical theories of leadership. In the past, people really didn't know what it meant to be a leader. They saw people who assumed leadership positions, and at first, the belief was that there was a great man theory that could account for leadership. Leadership was conceptualized as a single great man who put everything together and influenced others to follow along based on the strengths of inherited traits, qualities, and abilities. So notice the word great man. Already we have seen, we can imply that in the past people thought leaders had to be men. And that's what the society, that's what the culture had come to believe. So they believed that, first of all, you had to be a man, and because of the culture, the way it was predominantly white men, and at the beginning, they believed that blonde-haired white men were great at being leaders. You had to have brown eyes or blue eyes. You had to be a certain height. There were all types of theories that they believed at the time would constitute a great leader, a great man. In fact, they practiced what's called phrenology. Phrenology is studying the bumps on a person's head. They would look at the bumps or feel the bumps on a person's head. They would measure the diameter of the person's skull to be able to determine, the size of the brain and the lumps on the head. And they figured maybe this has something to do with leadership. All types of crazy theories were out there. But we started to realize that no, just because you're a tall white dude with a lot of knots on your head, that doesn't make you a good leader. So they started to evolve their thinking into what we saw as trait theories. Trait theories believe that people had certain traits about them. Intelligence, for instance. if you were an intelligent person, if you scored high, for instance, on a IQ test, then we just automatically assumed that, hey, there is a great leader. That person can take that position and run with it. And we found that really intelligence was only a small part of it, but there was more needed to be included if you were going to be a great leader. So as time went on, we came down to what we call behavior theories. And behavior theories deals not with the trait of a person, but how the person behaves and the type of results the person gets. As you see here, the leader's behavior toward followers correlated with leadership effectiveness or ineffectiveness. If you could rein them in, if they jumped at your orders, if they were loyal to you unswervingly, then you were considered to be a great leader. So we took a look at what the leader does or the people do as an indicator of great leadership. But we saw too that that's not necessarily the case when it comes to effective leadership. So what we've come to see today is what we call contingency theories. And leaders can analyze their situation and tailor their behavior to improve leadership effectiveness. It's also known as situational theories, and leadership cannot be understood in a vacuum separate from various elements of the group or organizational situations. What does this mean? Well, it means that there is more to leadership than just a person's intelligence, their physical characteristics, or their behaviors. There are a lot of variables that a person has to take into consideration if they are going to be able to make effective decisions, especially for the company. Now, from the beginning, leadership and management was believed to be autocratic. And what I mean by autocratic means that in the past, workers were expected to follow the orders of the leaders implicitly. They were not to question. Their job was to just be led. And if you have questions, that's fine. But your input and your suggestions are really not a concern for us. We know better because we are the educated ones. We're the ones who know more than everybody else because we're the resident experts or we're recognized as the expert. So it was more along the lines of the leader, the manager, they were boss, and the employees really didn't have a voice, and they were not regarded as very valuable to the organization outside just being a tool for the organization. Today, we have had to, especially with situational leadership, we've had to take a different approach. We've had to allow the worker to be able to be more proactive. The old way, the worker had to conform to the leader's style of management. Today, the leaders have to conform to the follower's style of work. And we found that to be much more effective than to just think everybody is going to follow one style of leadership. Contingency theories means that we have to tailor our leadership style to that individual and their style of readiness. Now, influence theories goes a little bit further in taking off on what we just talked about. It examines the influence processes between leaders and followers. And here you see the term charismatic leadership. This is influence based on the qualities and charismatic personality of the leader. And if you've watched, especially some of these individuals on television who are TV evangelists, motivational speakers, people whose job and those who make a living by influencing people, they have a style about them that is unique. They're charismatic. This means they're outgoing. They know how to use effective communication in as much as how they talk to a person and so forth. When I was in recruiting school for the military, very little of what I learned in school was about the military. It was how to sell people. And one of the methods that salesmen use, and we were taught to use, is the way that we communicate. If we altered the rate of delivery, that means if we maybe spoke a sentence or two and then paused, and then spoke a few more sentences and paused, we are gearing that person up for a series of ups and downs. If we change the speed of delivery, where we were slow sometimes, but if we were very fast and other times delivering our product, the person from a psychological standpoint would key in on that. And then we would use facial expressions, and we would get them involved in the communication process, and they wouldn't even realize it. I would talk to them, and I would nod my head up and down like I'm agreeing, and then involuntarily, they didn't even realize they were doing it. They were shaking their heads or moving their heads up and down with me to agree with what I had to say. There are little things that you can do to influence people that really, it's not very hard. I mean, it's not very difficult at all to manipulate someone. This is why people who know how to do it are very, very wealthy, because they know how to manipulate, they know how to influence, they know how to get people to do what they want to do. Now, the difference between those that are manipulative, those that are there to exploit, they do it for nefarious reasons. They do it to pad their pockets and so forth. You can use those types of examples and tools, those qualities, that personality, to get people to do what you need them to do. But it doesn't have to be a negative thing or where you're trying to use people or whatever. But really what we're trying to say here is that the more charismatic the leader, those qualities about that leader will endear people to him or her, and they will be able to get things done better than someone who is really not being able to connect, to not be able to really inspire or motivate. For instance, think about some of the pastors that you have heard in the past that really had a good influence on you. What was it about them? Now, I'm not talking about the ones who, took time to be with you and develop you and to disciple you and so forth. I'm talking about the way they preached. What was it about their style of preaching that motivated you? Billy Graham. Billy Graham had simple messages, but over time, Billy Graham was able to preach a message that was just as basic as it could be, but thousands would come. Now, granted, he was Billy Graham, and many people wanted to be able to say, I came down during the Billy Graham invitation. But still in all, Billy Graham had a passion about him. When you see him from behind the pulpit, you see that passion. You see him with his hands clenched. You see his body movement, his facial expressions. These are the qualities of a charismatic leader. So that's influence theories. And folks, I can tell you, you can get people to do what you want to do as long as you understand the dynamics of charisma. And then there are relational theories. And this focuses on how leaders and followers interact and influence one another. And here, transformational leadership and servant leadership are two important relational theories. Now, transformational leadership is a term that is not brand new, but it is a new model, a new ideology that we are embracing today. To me, you have two types of leaders, a transactional and a transformational leader. A transactional leader, you just do this, and in return, you'll get this. there's really no change in the person. You just get the job done. Just like when I go and I fill up a tank of gas. I'm benefiting from it because I've got a full tank of gas, but they're going to benefit from it because I'm going to pay them for that tank of gas. Nothing has changed. My life is no more enriched. I'm not a better person because of it. I just keep on going. Transformational leadership transforms the person. This is the type of leadership that we see with Jesus. Jesus took the most unlikely individuals and he revolutionized their world. He transformed them from being who they were into the ones that Christ wanted them to be. And Jesus did this through several strategies. First of all, he called them, he selected them, and then he taught them. Much of what Jesus did at the very beginning was teaching, instructing, and he also showed them. When he talked about healing, he showed them what healing was all about. When he talked about humility, he showed them what humility was all about, especially when he washed their feet and so forth. So he put all that into action. And then when it was time, he sent them out. He said, I'm sending you out 2 by 2. And when they were at that point, they were fully trained, they were exposed to what was expected, and then Jesus turned them loose. So he essentially transformed them from followers into early church leaders, so much so that they revolutionized the world. Now, folks, if it worked for Jesus, that model should work for us. But it takes investing in people. It takes an investment of yourself, time, effort. You have to be intentional with it. You have to be patient with it. But here you take a person and you do more than just train them. You want them to be able to assume the reins of maybe your position, of taking on greater responsibility, whatever it may be. Transformational leadership is moving them from being a follower to a leader in every respect. So that's some of the benefits of transformational leadership. And that's what we're trying to encourage today in businesses and in our churches. I'm a pastor and I have a small staff, and I could do probably everything that they do, but I don't want to. I'm not called to do all of those things. God called them to do that. It's my job to equip them. And I equip them through training and through encouragement and through mentoring and just being there for them. I don't try to tell them now that they know what's expected and how to do what's expected. I don't micromanage them. I tell them what the objectives are and let them use their God-given talents and ingenuity to be able to bring it about. If they need help, they let me know. And they do report to me about their progress and their concerns and so forth, and we discuss that, and collaboratively together we come up with solutions for that. But for the most part, they are ministers over their ministry, and it works out very well, and it works out that way in business. Don't underestimate the power and the blessing of those that God has given you stewardship over, to be able to nurture, to bring up, to train, and to transform. Well, as you can see, we've come a long way from the great man theory to where we are now. As we have done more research into the field of leadership and management, we've seen that really leadership can come from any type of person. Given the right circumstances and the right characteristics, a person can rise to the top. So I want to encourage you today to prayerfully consider what God has given you stewardship over, to be able to exercise good leadership. Well, tomorrow we're going to continue on and finish chapter 1. So until then, have a good day in the Lord, and I'll see you tomorrow.